To fight in World War I, a lot of young boys had to lie about their age, but 7-year-old Serbian soldier Momcilo Gavrić was by far the youngest. His mother, father, grandmother, 3 sisters, and 4 brothers were all murdered by opposing forces, leaving him with no choice but to join the Royal Serbian Army for a shot at revenge. Gavrić fought in multiple trench battles, was wounded several times, and promoted to corporal by the time he turned 8. After the war, he reunited with surviving members of his family and lived to the age of 86. During World War II, it was common for soldiers to keep photos of their loved ones under transparent grips on their pistols. They were known as sweetheart grips. Japanese man Hajime Fuji volunteered to be a kamikaze pilot but was denied acceptance because he had a wife and 2 young kids. So to honor his wish, his wife drowned their 2 young girls before doing the same to herself. Fuji was then accepted as a kamikaze pilot, meaning his death in May of 1945. Aeschylus was an ancient Greek playwright who is known today as the father of the tragedy genre. After receiving a prophecy that said he would die from a falling object, he spent most of his time outdoors. But he was killed when an eagle dropped a tortoise on him, mistaking his bald head for a rock suitable for shattering the shell of a reptile. Famous philosopher Kurt Gödel had an obsessive fear of being poisoned and therefore only ate food that was cooked by his wife. So when his wife went to the hospital for an extended stay, Gödel stopped eating completely and promptly starved to death. The first person to ever jump off the Brooklyn Bridge was a professional high diver. He wanted to demonstrate that people don't die simply from falling through the air, and he was correct. He fell 135 feet through the air without a problem, but hitting the water killed him immediately. This photo was taken at a zoo in India just moments before this white tiger dragged this man into his den and mauled him to death. The man apparently climbed up the fence to get a better view of the tiger, but ended up slipping and falling into the cage. Flat earther and daredevil Mike Hughes died in 2020 after crash landing his rocket he made to prove that the Earth is actually flat. In 2011, 3 teenagers from Utah stood on some train tracks to take a selfie next to a passing train. But they didn't hear the second train coming from the other direction, and all 3 were killed almost instantly. In 2011, a New York man died while riding his motorcycle at a helmet law protest. Medical experts said the only reason he died was because he wasn't wearing a helmet. In 2022, personal trainer Tom Mansfield accidentally overdosed on caffeine. He apparently miscalculated the amount of powder he needed and drank the equivalent of 200 cups of coffee in one. In 2016, an Indonesian pop star died on stage after she was bitten by the king cobra she was dancing with. Instead of seeking medical help, she continued performing for 45 minutes before succumbing to the snake's venom. In 1849, 79 people died when a bridge collapsed as a result of overcrowding in Norfolk, England. The crowd had apparently gathered to watch a clown in a bathtub being pulled up a river by 4 geese. In 2013, a 30-year-old woman from New Zealand died as a result of cardiac arrhythmia. Turns out it was linked to her habit of drinking 2.5 gallons of Coca-Cola every day. In 1797, Persian King Aga Muhammad Khan ordered the executions of 2 of his servants for being too loud. But since it was a religious holiday, he postponed their executions until the next day and made them return to their duties. That night, they murdered the king in his sleep. In 1986, a Soviet pilot made a bet with his co-pilot that he could land the plane without being able to see. So he curtained up all the cockpit windows and ended up losing the bet, since he crashed and killed 70 out of the 94 passengers on board. In 1912, a French tailor named Franz Reichelt wanted to prove to the people of Paris that he could design an overcoat that doubled as a parachute. So he gathered an audience including journalists and film recorders before jumping off the Eiffel Tower with his new invention. As you might have guessed, the parachute failed to deploy and Reichelt plummeted 200 feet to the ground, becoming the first person in history whose death was recorded on film. Despite its reputation, no one has died from a confirmed spider bite in Australia since 1979, but hundreds have died as a result of being surprised and startled by them, such as while driving. Tamika Hargrave died while cheating on her husband with her car mechanic. They were getting it on inside of a closed garage while the car was still running, and both eventually passed out from carbon monoxide. Their unclothed bodies were eventually found by Tamika's husband. A Viking leader named Sigurd the Mighty died in such a ridiculous way that the story's been passed down for over 1,000 years. He apparently strapped the head of his defeated foe to his horse's saddle, causing the teeth to graze against his leg as he rode off. Within a few days, Sigurd had succumbed to an awful leg infection. This was the final photo taken of James Gandolfini the night the 51-year-old actor suffered a massive heart attack in his hotel room in Rome, Italy. Hours before his sudden death, he scarfed down a double order of fried king prawns in a huge pile of foie gras, washed down with 2 pina coladas, 4 shots of rum, and a few beers. It would end up being his final meal. This 1998 photo was taken in Omagh, Ireland, just minutes before a bomb placed in the red car exploded. 29 people were killed by the blast and another 220 were injured. The cameraman of this photo died, but the man and his daughter happened to survive. This security photo shows teacher Dave Sanders guiding students out of the cafeteria during the Columbine High School massacre of 1999. After hearing gunshots from outside the school, Sanders sounded the alarm and saved over 100 students by herding them away from the shooters. Sadly, he was later shot 3 times and ended up being the only teacher killed in the shooting. A Thai man named Jumras Theakot was barely surviving as a fisherman, making only about $13 a day. But one day in 2019, he was walking along the beach and found a strange yellow lump in the sand. He decided to take it home for good luck, and it ended up being 80% ambergris, a super rare substance made from the waxy vomit of a sperm whale. He ended up selling it for a whopping $470,000. In 2013, ABC News reporter Amy Rohrbach had a mammogram taken live on TV to promote breast cancer awareness. It just so happened that she did have breast cancer, and the procedure likely saved her life. Despite being founded the same year in the same city with the same name, Hershey's Chocolate and Hershey's Ice Cream have no affiliation and have actually had multiple legal battles over their shared name. Nikola Tesla was born at midnight on July 10th during a severe thunderstorm. The midwife declared the lightning a bad omen and said he would be a child of darkness, but his mother replied saying, "No, he will be a child of light." This carved ivory model of an eye was used to help teach students the anatomy of the eyeball in the 1800s. It can be unscrewed from its base to show the different parts of the eye, including the cornea, pupil, and iris. Here's a 2,000-year-old jade burial suit from the Han Dynasty of China. All 3,200 of the jade tiles were stitched together using thin gold wire. Here's a nearly complete carnix from 100 BC that was found in France in 2004. Made in the shape of a snarling boar, it was a horn used by the Iron Age Celts to intimidate their enemies in battle. This was the great bathtub of ancient Roman Emperor Nero. Made of porphyry, it can be found in the Vatican museums of Rome. A Viking skull was found in Dorset, England, with lined grooves in its teeth. They were likely dyed red to frighten opponents in battle. This is the original marble throne of Charlemagne as it can be found in Aachen, Germany. Between the years 790 and 1531, it served as the coronation throne for 31 kings of Germany. These are some of the weirdest laws in the world. When Queen Elizabeth visited the set of Game of Thrones in 2014, she refused to sit on the Iron Throne. She was simply following an old law that prohibits the Queen from sitting on any foreign throne. Reading the Bible or watching porn are both strictly forbidden crimes punishable by death in North Korea. In 1972, Neil Armstrong visited the town of Longholm, Scotland. When he got there, he was read a 400-year-old law declaring that any Armstrong found in the town should be hanged. Here's a 1955 photo of a woman being ticketed for wearing a bikini on a public beach in Italy. U.S. law requires that eggs sold in supermarkets must be washed, while UK law requires that eggs sold in supermarkets must not be washed. Both do it to prevent salmonella. In ancient Rome, men found guilty of rape had their testicles crushed between 2 stones. Mississippi didn't make it illegal to buy or sell a child until 2009, only after a woman tried to sell her granddaughter online for $2,000 and a car. Legislators realized there was no law to punish her under, so they finally made one. Around 1902, Einstein had an illegitimate child named Lee Searle with his future wife Mileva. Very little is known about the girl other than that she was mentally disabled and died from infection at a very young age. In all likelihood, Albert never met the girl in person. Her existence was only discovered in 1987 through a collection of letters. Soon afterwards, the relationship was falling apart, so Einstein made Mileva sign a contract to help work things out. It had multiple conditions, such as that my clothes and laundry are kept in good order, that I will receive my 3 meals regularly in my room, and that my bedroom and study are kept neat at all times. After those two eventually got divorced, Einstein married the daughter of his mother's sister, making them first cousins. Despite being very smart, Albert's second son Edward was diagnosed with schizophrenia and described by his father as an insoluble problem. He was sent to a mental asylum at the age of 20 and remained there for the next 35 years before dying of a stroke in 1965. During the war, Pope Pius XII told the United States that he couldn't confirm reports that Germany was executing Jews. But in 2020, newly declassified documents revealed that he was lying and knew that the Holocaust was happening all along. Here's a photo of a Japanese boy waiting for his turn to cremate his dead little brother towards the end of the war. When the guard said, "Give me that load, boy," he replied saying, "It's not cargo, sir, he's my brother." After escaping from a POW camp, Australian soldier Robert Kerr McLaren removed his own appendix in the middle of a Philippine jungle. He did it without any anesthetic and only used a razor blade, mirror, and plant fibers for stitches. The operation took 4.5 hours to perform and he made a full recovery. British mathematician and computer scientist Alan Turing is the man who cracked the Enigma code during World War II. He's estimated to have shortened the war by at least 2 years and to have saved 14 million lives. But despite his heroism, he was later charged for being a homosexual and forced to undergo chemical castration. 2 years later, he took his own life by drinking cyanide. In 1980, Australian man Kevin Hillier was told by his doctor to take up metal detecting for exercise to strengthen his back. Within just a few weeks of this newfound hobby, he stumbled upon a golden nugget that took more than 2 hours to dig out. Weighing over 60 pounds, the Hand of Faith ended up being one of the largest gold nuggets ever found, worth just under $2 million. In 1851, British inventor Colin Pollinger built a mousetrap that he claimed would work for centuries. 155 years later, the trap somehow managed to catch a mouse while on display in a museum. During World War I, Belgian soldier Optatius Bizens was carrying these coins in his pocket when he was shot. Miraculously, they acted as a shield against the bullet and likely saved his life. Donald Harvey was a nurse from Ohio who killed 37 of his patients with cyanide throughout the 70s and 80s. He was only caught when one of his victims' coroners had the rare genetic ability to smell cyanide. This prompted an investigation and Harvey was exposed as a serial killer. In 1961, Soviet doctor Leonid Rogozov was working in Antarctica when he realized his appendix was about to burst. He knew he would die if it wasn't removed immediately, but he was the only doctor on the expedition. So he ended up performing the surgery on himself and miraculously made a full recovery. In the 1500s, Mapuche warrior Galvarino had both his hands cut off as punishment for defying the Spanish. He then returned home, raised an army, and fought with blades tied to the stubs of his arms. Liviu Librescu was a Holocaust survivor who grew up to become a scientist, engineer, and professor at Virginia Tech. During the mass shooting in 2007, he held the door of his classroom while the gunman continuously shot through the door, sacrificing his own life to save the lives of his 22 students. In 2020, an ancient fast food restaurant was uncovered during an excavation. Traces of pork, fish, snails, and rodents were even found in some of the containers. The Sorceress Kit is a box of trinkets discovered in the garden of a Pompeii home. It's believed to have been used as a toolkit by an ancient fortune teller. A loaf of bread made just before the eruption of Mount Vesuvius was discovered in 2018. It even still has a Roman bread stamp on it, which bakeries were required to do to prevent fraud. Here's a 2,000-year-old Beware of Dog mosaic that was discovered in front of the home of a Roman poet. This beautifully intact mosaic was discovered during an excavation just last year. A gold snake bracelet was found on the arm of a woman who was killed during the eruption. On the inside, there's an inscription that reads, "From a master to his slave girl." In 2013, archaeologists uncovered the remains of a 30-year-old man who appears to have survived the initial eruption, only to be killed when he was struck by a large slab of stone. Benjamin, the last Tasmanian tiger, died in 1936 after being locked outside of its sleeping quarters and freezing to death at the Hobart Zoo. Ever since the species went extinct, an overabundance of their disease-carrying prey has run rampant because its primary predator disappeared, making the thylacine a strong candidate to become one of the first species to de-extinct through cloning. The quagga is a subspecies of the plain zebra that went extinct in 1883 due to excessive hunting. But the Quagga Project seeks to use selective breeding to bring these animals back, with the hope that their reintroduction will eradicate some of the invasive trees throughout South Africa. The dodo bird evolved without any natural predators, but humans eventually took advantage of this and killed them all for food. But in 2007, scientists came across the best preserved dodo sample ever found, which may make it possible to bring them back through the help of their closest living relative, the Nicobar pigeon. Part 2. The science of cloning and de-extinction has been possible for decades, but there hasn't been the funding or motivation for it until now. A company called Colossal Biosciences has put together a team of scientists specialized in the field of de-extinction, and the first animal species they plan on reviving is the woolly mammoth. They'll be implanting embryos into Asian elephants using artificial wombs, existing mammoth DNA, and CRISPR technology. The company hopes that reintroducing these animals to the tundras will help make the Arctic colder by packing down the snow and slowing down the melting of the permafrost. They plan on starting with 100 woolly mammoths in a Siberian area called Pleistocene Park, and are hoping that millions of mammoths will end up taking back the Arctic within the next few decades. Colossal is striving to birth the first one by the end of 2024, and the company plans on completing its project by 2027. In 2015, a man swimming near Huntington Beach, California, was suddenly struck in the back by a great white. After making it ashore and going to the hospital, doctors assured him that he'd be okay. But upon seeing his x-rays, they realized he had a cancerous tumor that they were just barely able to remove in time. In 1993, a surfer named John Doyle was attacked by a great white shark off the coast of West Africa. He made it to shore unable to walk, only to be mauled by a pride of lions on his way to the hospital. More than 250 stitches later, he survived both attacks and made a full recovery. In 2001, an 8-year-old boy was attacked by a 7-foot bull shark while standing in knee-deep water near Pensacola, Florida. The shark had bitten off one of the boy's arms before his uncle pulled it away and wrestled it to shore. After a park ranger shot the shark in the head, the boy's uncle retrieved the severed arm, put it on ice, and drove it to the hospital where it was successfully reattached. Molly Shattuck made news in 2005 after becoming the oldest NFL cheerleader on record at the age of 38. But 9 years later, her accolade was tainted when she was convicted of repeatedly graping her son's 15-year-old friend. Her son apparently helped get them together by texting his friend, "Call my mom, she thinks you're hot." In 2021, NFL cornerback Philip Adams shot and killed 5 people in their South Carolina home before turning the gun on himself. An autopsy later revealed that Adams had been suffering an unusually severe case of CTE from playing football, possibly contributing to his sudden violent behavior. In 1983, star running back Joe Delaney sacrificed his life while attempting to save 3 children from drowning. Despite being unable to swim, Delaney told a bystander, "I've got to save those kids. If I don't come up, get someone." His number is unofficially retired by the team, and a statue was put up in his hometown. Keanu Reeves' sister Kim was diagnosed with the deadly blood cancer leukemia in 1991. In response, he sold his home to move closer to her, cleaned her house, cooked her meals, and provided all of her necessary medications. Once she recovered, Keanu started a private charity to fund cancer research in children's hospitals. In 2009, he was interviewed saying, "I don't like to attach my name to it, I just let the foundation do what it does." Frank Sinatra died the night of Seinfeld's finale, and his ambulance made it to the hospital in record time since there was no traffic due to everyone watching the show. Hans Scharf, the most successful Nazi interrogator in World War II, never physically harmed an enemy soldier. Instead, he treated them with respect and kindness, taking them for walks, letting them visit their captured comrades in the hospital, and even letting captured pilots go on test flights. His methods were very successful since virtually everyone ended up talking. In 1944, a group of American airmen were shot down by the Japanese. Out of the 10 men, 9 of them were captured, tortured, executed, and cannibalized. The only man who evaded capture and survived was future President George H.W. Bush. White House police officer Leslie Kofelt was fatally shot while protecting President Truman from an assassination attempt, but he managed to kill the attacker with a headshot from 30 feet away just before dying. As many as 3 U.S. presidents, as well as Abe Lincoln's son, likely died as a result of contaminated water in the White House. Until 1850, there was no sewage system, and a field of human excrement called night soil flowed freely into the water supply. After President Andrew Garfield was shot, his negligent doctors kept digging into the wound with dirty hands and tools, attempting to find the bullet. They gave him such a bad abdominal infection that he had to be fed through his anus for the last 3 months of his life. His assassin openly confessed at a trial of the shooting, but argued that Garfield's doctors had actually done the killing. When he was a sophomore in college, NBA legend Karl Malone had a child with a 13-year-old girl. The son grew up to become NFL player Demetrius Bell, but he said he only met his dad on one occasion after graduating high school, where Malone told him it was too late for a father-son relationship and that he would have to make his way on his own. In 1993, NFL player Jeff Alm crashed his car while under the influence, killing his best friend but leaving Jeff completely unharmed. Alm then retrieved a shotgun from the wreck, fired 2 desperation shots in the air, and then sat down and took his own life. After 9/11, NFL safety Pat Tillman turned down a multi-million-dollar offer from the Cardinals to instead join the U.S. Army. He served several combat tours in the Army Rangers before he was tragically killed by friendly fire in the mountains of Afghanistan. Prior to his death, Tillman called the American invasion and occupation of Iraq effing illegal. Nicknamed Chad, this absolute unit of a house cat suffers from myostatin-related hypertrophy, an extremely rare condition that causes muscles to grow excessively large. Its owner says he always makes sure the cat is well fed and taken care of to avoid any possible beef. This baby crocodile was born with an unusual mutation that gave it the tail of a mermaid. A fisherman in Maine found this translucent lobster. Scientists say the odds of this happening are about 1 in 100 million. This record-breaking 10-inch long tadpole found in an Arizona swamp never evolved into a bullfrog. Nicknamed Goliath, experts say it's most likely due to a hormonal mutation that'll prevent it from metamorphosizing until death. This octopus with 85 tentacles was found near Japan in 1957. Once thought to be a separate subspecies, the king cheetah is an African cheetah with a rare mutation of the fur. Discovered in 1926, this badass freak of nature has only been seen in the wild 6 times. Firstly, here's a video of Rambo the orangutan than humans since they've developed excellent visual memory in order to spot dangers in the wild incredibly quickly. Jonathan Goldsmith, the most interesting man in the world in Dos Equis commercials, is known for his extensive charity work over the years. He's been an advocate for landmine victim support, preventing and curing cancer in dogs, saving the Siberian tiger, and ending child sex trafficking in Cambodia. Brazilian mother Silvia Greco won FIFA's Best Fan Award in 2009 after she was seen in the crowd explaining the entire match to her blind son. Little Caesars founder Mike Ilitch quietly paid for Rosa Parks' rent after she was robbed and assaulted in her own home at the age of 81. He helped her move to a safer neighborhood and continued paying her rent until she died 11 years later. In 1996, researchers found a male orca calf with serious boat injuries to the dorsal fin and spine. But despite being unable to hunt, Stumpy was cared for by as many as 5 different orcapods, providing him with food and protection from boats. During the 2011 Fukushima nuclear disaster, hundreds of elderly Japanese people volunteered to repair the facility, preventing a complete meltdown. They knew they would die years before the awful effects of the radiation, so they spared younger workers from the lethal exposure.